It's Thursday, and you know what that means. Everybody's gathered around their computer to ask the question they ask themselves each and every week, and that is, hey, did you see this one? Look, you internet people. We're here again, doing our thing on a Thursday night.
Dancing to a theme song we can't hear.
Yeah, we can't hear, but the people can. You see,
they can hear it.
They can,
but they can't see my dancing.
They can't see your dancing.
No. So you're doing that specifically for you. 2-0. So it's even crazy.
I can't even see it because I just see a blank screen until we come back. Anyway, hello everyone and welcome to Hey Did You See This One? We have a special guest again this week. It's Steve's birthday month. He's the host with the most who can boast the most roast. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Okay. I just watched Event Horizon today. Good movie, and that's the movie that we're talking about this week.
That's the podcast for this week. Goodbye.
We do, like you mentioned, have a guest with us today, a friend of mine named Scott, who, like me, has a special connection to this movie, I guess I'd say.
Hey everybody, it's me.
Welcome.
Hello, welcome.
So Scott, the way we usually do this is that we give a little brief history of our history, I guess, with the movie. So we'll let you go first. Basically just tell us, the first time you saw it and the kind of effect it had on you, and all that good stuff.
I was, I think, fortunate enough growing up to have a big Soviet satellite dish in my yard, and that's how I got a TV. And there wasn't really channels per se. It was just kind of the satellite would search for something, and whatever it gravitated to or picked up on, that's what you got to watch. And when I was a wee little boy of 9 years old, this came on, and my family was like, "Well, it's this or nothing, so let's watch it." And it was kind of my first foray into cosmic horror, and it definitely as a functioning person with ADHD and an overactive imagination, kind of sends you for a trip when you're I can't see hell, but it's everywhere. Yeah, so that definitely didn't affect me at all. There's been no lasting consequences from this film.
Yeah, you don't have horrifying nightmares where Sam Neill is ripping his own eyes out with his bare fingers.
No, and I'm a kid, and my parents are yeah, he's fine. You can watch it.
That's normal. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I had a similar, not a giant satellite in my front yard.
You're that was the same. I had the same experience.
The exact same experience as you. No, the movie Event Horizon, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson in the year 1997. I saw because my parents and their friends rented it, and I was 10 years old, I believe, or I might have also been 9 or 10, and. I guess this was the point in my parents' lives where they were like, all right, I think he's finally old enough to watch this horrifying stuff. They were wrong. I was freaked out by this entire movie. I remember covering my eyes. I remember being way more scared by things that weren't happening than the things that were happening. The tension building, the fact that it looks like a medieval torture chamber, every room looks like the room itself could injure you, possibly.
H.R. Geiger adjacent.
Yeah, sort of. It's designed to look like a spooky haunted house. Even so much so that they're let's have it in the upper atmosphere of Neptune, so there's a constant thunderstorm happening outside. I mean, that's a fun workaround to how do we get weather in space? But yeah, I remember being, it was difficult for me to sleep that night, and I didn't watch it again for many, many years because my brain had transformed it into something far more terrifying than it actually is. But yeah, that's my history. And now it's one of my, I don't know if I would say this is one of my favorite movies, but it's definitely one of the few movies that I own on Blu-ray. So I like it enough that I wanted to hear Paul W.S. Anderson talk about it while watching the movie, which I did today. And he had some interesting things to say. And I just realized I left my notes in the other room. So Kaylin, why don't you tell us about your first time while I go get my notebook?
Allow me to distract our viewers while you go get your notebook. I can't wait to hear some of your insights, as well as P-Dub's, S's, A's. My first time was the other day. I find it weird when we do movies that I'm not surprised that there are some movies I haven't seen, but I am surprised when I haven't heard of them either, because I like watching trailers, previews, and those little cheap little magazine things at the theater or whatever that have upcoming shows and whatnot.
Magazine.
Yes, that sounds about right. So
I used to have to restock those when I worked at the movie theater as a teenager. It was the worst thing.
The worst?
One of the only other thing that was worse was when a little kid would come in and eat 5 bags of Skittles and then barf everywhere in the theater, and then he'd have to go clean it up.
That was the only thing worse than the magazines. That was it.
But and especially if it's a movie that's got names in it, which this movie does. But I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. Those go hand in hand. And I love when you guys bring me movies that I haven't seen to introduce me to them. So I watched it the other day. I have some words to share that we will throughout.
It's good because this is a podcast.
Yeah.
I have no words.
I'm gonna get this out of the way off the top. I'm just gonna get it out of the way. I'm gonna be the bad boy of the episode. One of my notes is Walmart brand John Carpenter.
Okay.
You don't have to be rude about it.
Sorry. You know what? That's not even fair to say. It was just at a moment while I was watching it, that's what came to my head. But this is better than that comment. This movie is better than that comment, but that was a comment.
Did you guys know that Paul W.S. Anderson turned down directing X-Men to direct this movie?
Could you imagine?
Good, because we got a decent X-Men movie.
I would disagree, but anyway, and also the guy who directed is now a horrible.
Yeah, the director is a
criminal
who managed to ruin the Dark Phoenix saga 2 times. So
damn it.
Yeah. Jason, why don't you tell us about your first time watching?
Hello, my first
Event
time
Horizon
was literally okay. So one of my best friends, Stu, loves this movie. And when I started reviewing movies back in 2020 on my Instagram, he was like, "You got to watch this movie." Now, if we rewind all the way back to 1997 when this came out, another movie came out at the same time called Contact. Contact is a sci-fi movie. I've never seen it. I had to see if I remembered it this way.
Oh man, Contact's good.
Contact, yeah. I remember being heralded as a great sci-fi movie, and I'm seeing here now that it's a fucking Robert Zemeckis movie and music by Alan Silvestri. Thank you.
There you go.
And the story was by Carl Sagan of all people. So this is high sci-fi. It's about.
You say that like he's Carl Sagan.
Yeah, Carl Sagan.
Yeah. Carl Sagan.
Yeah,
it's a Carl Sagan, and you know, just like a mama used to make.
I'm sorry.
Contact. So when Event Horizon came out, I just assumed that it was just another one of those movies. Fast forward many, many years till 2021 or 2022, I finally watched it. And this is while we're doing this show, and I realized that no, it's a sci-fi movie, but it's basically like Hellraiser. If Hellraiser was directed by John Carpenter, kinda. Lots of genre bending, lots of the stuff that I like out of film, and it immediately became one of my favorite weird sci-fi horror things. I love space hell. I love the Doom games, and I love the flashes of hell that we get in this. We never get a direct look at it, which I wish that's going to be my what went well, what could have been.
Right. I think that's to the benefit of the movie, though, in my opinion. The fact that you see so little, and the fact that your imagination kind of fills in the void is.
I much like you, Scott. You said you watched this when you were 9.
Yeah, I love that the evil is invisible. It's present. Yeah, I
saw RoboCop when I was 7, and it fucked me up so bad that I couldn't watch horror movies until 2019. So
you really weird ideas of justice,
No, it's just the over the top. I was when I was 7 in like 1992, so the movie was like pretty new. So it was very like, I don't know, it blew my mind. Like I'd only been exposed to horror elements through like Ghostbusters 1 and 2. So to see a guy get shot like 50 times and a guy gets shot in the dick and his dick explodes and the Swamp Thing monster at the end, like it just messed me up so bad. And like those, like I'd go to sleepovers and they'd all be watching a horror movie and I'd be like in the other room playing with my action figures, like terrified. So I do kind of wish that I saw this earlier, but I definitely don't think I could have handled this movie at age 9.
Yeah, there are certain movies that it's fine for a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old to watch, but this, I don't think this is on the list.
I don't.
Of those movies.
I mean, I didn't handle it well. Like it wasn't. I walked away and I was like, oh, that's a lot to think about. Like I was very scared.
You're like in your bed, like, oh my god.
The first time I saw this, I saw Dr. Weir as a very different character for most of the movie, and I also couldn't make heads or tails of the like video of the like blood orgy. And I realized that it's less blood orgy.
I want more of that.
And
can we get more blood orgy?
It's less blood orgy and more of them like eating each other feet first. I like watched it really.
They're having sex. They're having sex with each other.
There's sex happening in there for sure.
I think I saw some sex in the background.
A guy
shoves a foot in his mouth and chews it up.
A guy is putting his hand down a person's throat and pulling their innards out through their mouth.
Also that. And then there's like that, viscera puking, which is also pretty great. I don't know if I want more of it, Kaylin, but I definitely wanted more of a look at where they went. But you're right, like maybe more.
That's more of it.
It also seems like it could potentially be like each one of them went somewhere different. Like your own person.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. And the what came back is like just a little tiny bit of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that.
Lead us, Steven.
Yeah. Why don't we kind of go through the plot a little bit, and we'll talk about stuff that we liked and didn't like, and little chunks. And
I'll tell you one thing I didn't like right off the bat. We've been doing a lot of '90s movies lately with really interesting intros, like credits. This is just shut up, get to the movie. It's just space and words, and we watched a lot of 80s movies as well, and it's giving 80s, which I don't care for. I need this shit to be snappy, get to the point, more explosions in your intros, please.
I do like that. Like everyone in the 90s was like pretty convinced that like by 2012 we were going to be living on the moon. Like everyone's like, the moon's so cool. We're going for sure. And then like moon interest took a hard left.
Yeah, they thought that we were going to be colonizing Mars in like
by now
20-teens.
Yeah.
That
that has a lot to do with the world like just still not be able to get their shit together as far as like love and unity. It just has gotten worse as far as pushing apart and war and capitalist billionaires. I don't want to get on a soapbox about capitalism here, but
then get off of it already.
Capitalism is sort of the reason why we're not in space.
No, I think the Earth needs to be more of a shithole. Like I think that
like we gotta go.
At Mars, and we're like Mars is like pretty rough, but like Earth's still okay. We need to just like burn it all, and then we'll leave.
Hey, at least Mars has women, right?
Yeah.
Capitalism could also potentially be the answer to further space exploration.
That means that the billionaires will get to go to space, and that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah. No, but there will be the first ones. Like remember those big ass TVs? In the beginning, only a few, but then eventually, look, we got all these. Look at these flat screens we got. Yeah. We get to enjoy the awesomeness.
I don't think
later.
I don't hate that analogy.
I don't think commercial space travel is something that we're gonna really see as big.
If we can find the energy source,
that's the problem, right? Like
the billionaires will just always have nicer space travel. We'll get like the friggin' space travel.
We'll be on a space bus.
Porter flight to space.
We get the space bending.
Yeah.
Coach. Just call it. The company will be called Coach. Coach to space. So the plot of this movie is pretty simplistic. In the year 2040, they send the first deep space manned vessel to the borders of our solar system. The ship is called the Event Horizon. which, if anybody doesn't know, an event horizon is essentially like the border and edge of a black hole.
That's another
Did they
thing.
know that?
Just to give you a little bit of more insight on why I thought this was like Contact, I thought it was about just some people going to the edge of a black hole, and that's sort of, you know what I mean? Like, I just thought it was a sci-fi movie about going to deep space. I didn't know.
That's the association I initially made as well.
Like, I thought it was just a hard sci-fi, but it's a paranormal haunted house movie.
Paranormal. That's the word I was looking for the whole time. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
I kept saying spooky.
Spooky.
Spooky ghosts.
And I kept saying it with your voice.
Spooky.
Spooky.
But yeah, it's a starship, and it disappears on its maiden journey to Proxima Centauri, I believe is what they say. And so the Lewis and Clark, which is the ship that we are met with in the movie, captained by Laurence Fishburne, is essentially going to investigate. They're kind of like, I think they're literally supposed to be the Coast Guard. Like, I think that the symbol on their jacket is actually the Coast Guard symbol that we use today.
They're like space paramedics. It's like an ambulance.
Sort of, yeah. And they're going to go check on the event horizon because it has reemerged from wherever it disappeared to. And we get kind of a nice little sci-fi, let's put them in a tube and make them go to sleep until they get there. And they explain it to me, or to us, I guess, directly to me. They said, Steven, here's how it works.
This movie really spoke to me.
We put them
literally.
into this water so that when they go into like light speed or whatever the fuck, the shock of it would essentially liquefy your body if you weren't in suspended.
I don't like calling it a couch.
I thought that was okay.
Gravity couch? Oh, gravity couch gets a big 8 out of 10.
But it's a standing up thing. If it was like horizontal laying down, I'd be down with that. Think about
this.
Riddle me this. What's up in space?
Yeah, I was about to say there's no up and down in space.
Fair. Damn it, that's good.
Yeah.
I can't refute that or refute or whatever.
Up and down.
No, you
caused
can't.
by gravity. So.
And in a gravity couch, there is no gravity.
Exactly.
So it's a big
dementors.
crew.
Also cushions. Put some cushions in there
For the pushing?
Yeah, for the pushing, exactly.
No pushing.
The,
no hand. No
pushing.
touching.
No touchy.
Good Lord. We're already derailing this heavily.
Sorry, we got business to do here.
You're almost done with the plot, so there you go.
It's true.
But
yeah, they basically are. They go to investigate the event horizon. They arrive and they, for some reason, decide to dock on docking bay 13. I'm like, oh my god, this movie is smelling its own farts over here.
The hand is so heavy.
Yeah, it's like, what's the scariest number? 666. That's too many.
Nah, that's too on the nose, guys.
You know, I just watched it and I didn't clock that. I would have been like, why does the ship have even more than 2 docking bays?
Apparently, it has at least 13.
It's a very large ship.
And they're written in Roman numerals because Roman numerals are scarier than numbers.
That part I was
They
like,
are
and it's brass. I was like, this is good.
Yeah, and I watched the commentary on today, and Paul Anderson is talking about how they digitally scanned the Notre Dame Cathedral and broke up all the pieces and used those to build the Event Horizon ship design. So it's literally designed after the Notre Dame Cathedral.
That's pretty cool. That's why it's so like
cool.
gothic.
Anyone listening, it looks like it's ripped right out of like Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's ugly and it's mean looking.
Another
it's
thing
shaped
I
like
wanted
a cross.
The other day, and they were playing 40K.
Shaped like a cross. The corridors are shaped like coffins. There's cross windows everywhere. It's like they went real hard into let's just make this thing as spooky as possible.
I noticed that the ship in Sunshine looked really similar to the Event Horizon, instead it just has a giant shield on it in Sunshine. It's like that.
Was I the only one that felt the Nebuchadnezzar from The Matrix?
Well,
No, 100%. This is like the precursor. Or whatever,
Is it like
of
the same set or whatever?
Yeah, it absolutely did.
Yeah, it has the same vibe for sure, and the music in this movie is really similar to a lot of music in the first Matrix movie.
but also like a little bit of Star Warsy. John Williams like pangs. I noticed later in the movie when they're battling, it's very Star Warsy.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Go back and listen
You know?
to the fight between Laurence Fishburne and cut up face.
Dude, I watched the movie 3 times this week.
Oh.
And
I
I've seen
heard
it 100 times.
Fair enough.
But I mean, you're allowed to have your inclinations and opinions. I just don't agree with you. I was actually trying to check to see if this guy had any kind of hand in the Matrix music, but he did not.
The end credits definitely sounded like the Matrix.
He did do the music, however, for X-Men.
Well, Alan Silvestri also did an X-Men, didn't he?
Probably. He does a lot of movies.
He does a lot of movies.
I was gonna say the music did get me pumped at the beginning of this.
No, he wrote the guy that I'm talking about wrote the Avengers theme. Sorry.
There's a guy who worked with the composer for this, or a band called Orbit, I believe is what their name was, and they did all sort of the industrial sounding stuff that was on top of the orchestral stuff. So they had an orchestral score, and then they had this other musician come in to like make it more, I guess, like scary sounding with weird sound effects and like using a bowstring on like a garbage can lid or something to make it like.
That's like Ludwig Göransson now does that.
That sounds like brilliant genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be a psychopath genius man to make this kind of stuff. So they board the Event Horizon, and one thing I noticed, which I thought was funny, is that by the end of this sequence of events that happens upon arrival, all of the European characters are safely aboard the Lewis and Clark, and all the brash American characters are the ones running around inside the haunted house. And I was like, I wonder if that was deliberate or just kind of a happy accident. I just think it's funny to me.
Because Americans are stupid.
Yeah, they run headlong first. One thing that I did like was that there were no guns, because it would make no sense for them to have guns. Guns in space are very dangerous, and also what would you need guns for if you're in a established universe that has no aliens or anything? Then like space pirates, it's just like why would you need a gun?
But they did establish that they have a kind of like a bolt gun thing.
It's the rivet thing that they're using to repair the.
Yeah, I thought it was just repairs. I was surprised they didn't have like flamethrowers or something, or tasers. Like, what if a person has like the space crazies? You know,
like classic
space madness.
Yeah,
that's true. Nothing to subdue somebody, which would have come in handy when a man who just dug his own eyes out comes at you, somehow able to see still.
I think he was above that at that point, though. He had super strength by that. He had the devil in him. I want to point out also that Smithy, is that his name? Smith. He plays Alfred on Gotham. And when I first watched this, it blew my mind that he was in other stuff, because I'd never.
Wait a minute, he's not actually Alfred Pennywise?
That's not what I said. But I had never actually seen him in anything else before. So imagine my surprise when I was like, "Whoa, he's from Event Horizon. That's why they made him Alfred later."
Yeah, I think the majority of his career are European movies.
Okay.
But he's in lots of stuff. He's been around for a while.
DJ or whatever, the other dude, the doctor, I recognize him from stuff too.
Jason Isaacs? Yeah, he's very famous.
He's also almost always a slightly unhinged doctor.
or an evil wizard racist.
Oh yeah.
He was
in these movies when the character who like wants to leave the most just like gets fucked by everything else that's happening around them. Like, this person's like, no, I'm not having it with this ship. I want to get the heck off this ship. This ship's bad news. And they're like, just stay here for 5 more minutes. You know, it's fine.
Also love that when they finally get the visuals working on the other crews recording, that immediately after watching it, Laurence Fishburne is just like, we're leaving. Like, we're getting the fuck out of here. This is crazy. Instead of being the typical, like, we have to get the job done captain, he's like, no. We're not sticking around here until we start raping each other to death. That doesn't sound like a good time for anybody.
You, but 14 minutes and 32 seconds, we get a movie title shout-out.
Perfect.
Oh, the Event Horizon.
Yeah, and then he says it a bunch of times right after.
Well, while aboard the ship, what's that kid's name? Justin, I think.
Baby Bear.
Baby Bear.
Oh, it was Mouse.
That's another movie.
It was Justin, but they keep referring to him like Justin's his last name also.
Mr.
It was also
Justin.
it was the name on his shirt, so I think his the first name couldn't have been Justin. Right?
Mr. Justin, yeah.
His name is Justin. Like Mario.
His name's Baby Bear Justin.
Maybe it's Bear Justin. Yeah.
That Bear Justin's a pretty solid name.
I'm not opposed.
The kid is like, he's like the youngest member of the crew. He's the one who goes into the gravity core. And
he gets
gravity
core.
Gets his briefcase.
He gets the most horrible things happen to him without actually dying.
Yeah, he survives the whole movie.
Somehow, but everything happens to him that could possibly happen in space.
He's the only one who gets to see what hell looks like on the other side of that gate.
It's the darkness in me.
This is like a point where I give the movie like absolutely a win, because like I remember at like being young and then watching this again when I was a teenager and then watching it again, recently. And all I want is to be like, what did he see? Where did he go? What happened to him? And your brain fills it in. And like, I don't know if it's from budget constraints or just like a good understanding of horror, but like that is how you do it. Like, whatever they could have showed won't be as bad as what I thought in my head.
Right.
Yeah. And Anderson.
Sometimes budget constraints makes things better.
Yeah, restraints can breed creativity in ways that you don't think possible. And the budget for this movie was $60 million, which is not.
Sometimes though, it is like that joke in South Park when they're doing a rip, or they're doing a parody of like Lord of the Rings, and it's just two guys on a tower and they're like, oh my god, look at what's happening, isn't that crazy? Sometimes movies really have that energy where they try to less is more it, and you like, just fucking show us even if it looks bad. And this movie I really wanted to see how, but you guys are all right. Like, the shit in my head while I'm watching this movie is going to be a million times worse than just showing me like red rocks and like fire chasms and like a big demon. I've seen that enough times.
I don't know if that would be his vision of hell.
No, it's going to be...
Everyone thinks hell, they're like, those rocks are red.
There's fire geysers.
I've seen enough of these airlock, dock, jump, save things. Every fucking movie we've done this month.
I picked a lot of space movies.
Even though Sphere is underwater,
like
it still has a scene like that.
It feels more prevalent because of the fact that these are the only things I've watched recently. But at the same time,
listen, any kind of space thriller is gonna have a airlock scene in it.
It's true. That's kind of.
They gotta remind you,
like it's a thing now, though. Like it, I don't even like it anymore. Give me something else.
Jesus, Caleb, we only watched 2 space movies this month.
This is the third.
Technically,
no, one of them was underwater.
One of them was underwater.
Okay, fine.
Nobody gets killed by a storm of jellyfish in this movie.
Sorry, Scott, what were we about to say there?
Oh, I don't remember.
Whoops. Must have been a
This is
lie.
good. No, I am paying attention. You guys are not boring. This is good.
No. It's more so that we sometimes we accidentally talk over the guest, and the guest is supposed to be showcased. And
it's my show tonight. All right, guys.
We should start letting the fucking host, the guest host, like SNL style.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility.
Welcome to Do You See It?
Hey, have you seen this film?
So while they're, in the ship, Justin goes into the room and the core activates. It's called the gravity core, I believe, or gravity well or something. Yeah, and it looks so cool. It looks like something from hell, basically. It's covered in spikes. It's constantly moving. It's got spinning rings around it.
It's filled with black goo. Like, they knew what they were doing. They were like, yeah, it makes gravity. Yeah, I bet it.
Sure. But also, like, it's revealed later that Sam Neill designed this because he wanted to, like, make a contraption that could pass through a black hole, right? Or create a black hole in order to travel. And
interestingly, that's where my 2 viewings of this movie were vastly different. The first time I was like, I felt for the Weir, what's like John Weir or Greg Weir, whatever Sam Neill's character is. I felt for him. I was like, oh man, this scientist just wants to like have his vision. This time, since you know what's happening and you know what's going to happen, his obsession actually makes him come up like a mad scientist right from the get-go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I had the exact same experience. I felt like the first time I was like, it's Sam Neill. He loves dinosaurs. Everything's going to be okay. And then the second time I was like, how does anyone trust him?
Yeah, he's
the
obsessed.
second viewing, you're like, you feel like he's going to come after you with a fire axe and say, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" Get shot to death in a diner. It's another carpentry thing. Is like we did watch In the Mouth of Madness, not recently, but like in the last couple months, and it just makes it feel all that much more like a John Carpenter movie. Seeing Sam Neill doing his classic weirdo scream. Oh!
Mouth of Madness was last year. It was last February.
Oh, was it really?
A year and a few months ago.
It feels closer than that.
It does, because that was still like COVID time, sort of.
Yeah. And it was also one of the best movies we've done on the show.
It's one of the best movies we've done on the show.
I think that does speak volumes, though, to when you watch something on a first viewing and you have a certain impression, and then you watch it on a second viewing and you see it in a different light, and it still works both ways.
Yeah.
We then have Justin go into the portal, which is freaky deaky, and then we get Cooper shows up just in the nick of time, or not actually in the nick of time. He's a little late. If you could have stopped him from going through into hell, maybe the whole movie would have been saved. But he helps them. Then they activate the gravity, and then all those puddles of coolant fall into the ground, which kind of ends up having this like pool at the bottom of the core room, which is really cool as well.
He was late because he had to offer Stark something hot and black. That
part made me laugh.
A cheeky joke.
Cooper is like the.
Like, what?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was to say Cooper is like the unsung like underdog hero. Like, you know, like he ends up kind of saving the day a couple times, but like by accident, you know. And through the whole movie, you would never expect him to make it out to the end. And I don't just mean because the one obvious reason in horror. I just mean because he's plucky and he's like wisecracking. And no matter what,
I love that. That's my favorite. He was my runner-up for what went well.
Wisecracking, plucky characters in horror movies are like get the funny death. Typically.
Yeah, but he has sort of like a heel turn once stuff starts to get crazy, right? Where you when he gets scared and he looks scared and you can tell that he's scared. He almost has this sort of like childlike panic in his eyes, which I was like, this is surprisingly effective. Like he is killing it right now. And he's hotter than a cup of coffee.
Scott, what were you about to say? I know this is the second time I'm doing this.
I was gonna say, watching it, I got the impression that like it wasn't just like the first time. Like he's been sexually harassing this woman for like 10 space days or whatever their work
relentlessly.
You
get the vibe that she's super over it.
Yeah.
But now they're probably going to get married because they survived a haunted house together.
They were the two sort of spoilers. They're the only ones that survive an old fucking vegetable boy.
You don't get the vibe that she brought like Heck back with her.
Well, let's talk about that at the end because I fully
maybe I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know.
It's definitely open-ended enough that she could have potentially have brought hell to Earth. Like they go back to Earth and she just brings hell with her. And again, like I know we've talked about it a few times where it's like, I want to see what's on the other side of that gate, but it's also like, is that a black hole? Is it taking them to a section of space or is it taking them to another dimension? What's happening there? I like the fact that it's ambiguous, but if it is just another section of space somewhere, like it's just a door to like somewhere really in deep, dark, like negative void of space, that's so much more terrifying to me than going to another dimension. If there's just like an area of space that exists that's full of hell monsters.
So there's always that notion that like if we were to meet an alien, we might not even know we meet it because our brains can't even conceive of like what an extraterrestrial might be. And the fact that this is basically like a specter or like a poltergeist kind of a alien, they might have gone through to a place that the aliens are just invisible and they just make you see your nightmares, and that's the alien. So I was fully like, did they just bring back whatever this entity is? That because the movie basically ends the way it starts, like she wakes up from the pod and sees Satan Sam Neill again, right? So that was the vibe I sort of got. Not to jump all the way to the very end of the movie, but since we're on the subject, I fully. And that comes from watching it a second time as well. Like don't watch movies twice enough, and I always say I'm going to watch it again later, but it's ineffectual for the podcast because I'm not going to talk about the movie a second time in podcast form. So maybe I should adopt what you guys do and watch the movie a couple of times. I'm not saying gonna, I'm saying it probably should.
Jason,
I definitely don't do it for all the
vouch
movies.
and persuade you. I recommend it.
Okay. You're not going
I recommend it for movies like this where you're excited to talk about it.
You're not going to watch The Complete Owl twice where you guys just listened to me talk about Weird
watch
Al
it. I
facts?
watched it 3 times.
Oh,
I didn't even really fully watch it once.
fair enough.
Whoa.
That's fair. I tried to explain to somebody what it was today, and I couldn't. I was like, it's like a bunch of music videos kind of tied together by jokes that suck. Anyway, sorry.
I rented that off of YouTube. I watched it more than
It
once.
was $4. Yeah.
I rented it off YouTube and I watched it at 1.5 speed because I was like, I don't want to watch this.
I was gonna say if you watched it slower, I'm like, that's very interesting. I want to really absorb this.
Get the Weird Al jokes in your brain. Skull.
So upon activating the gravity core, the gravity starts, which is what causes Justin to get sucked into the portal, but it also creates a shock wave that damages the Lewis and Clark, the ship that's come to investigate the Event Horizon, and which then causes air to seep out, I believe. It gives us
Here's the hall or something.
Yeah, it gives us a ticking clock, which is always good to have in a horror movie because it just adds another element of like, if we don't get out of here by this time, we're going to die. And then they start to collectively hallucinate, which they then are.
The clock trope is used in like 80% of movies also, and it never gets old for me because it's easy tension. It's just an easy tension builder. If it's the whole movie is like a time frame, or if it's just one act or even just a segment of the movie, it always gets me. It's kind of like how I qualify a movie versus a film, and I always say a movie has an explosion and a high-speed chase, and if it doesn't have that, it's a fucking indie flick mumblecore kind of film, right?
2 things that you say every episode, and I'm like, I don't think he knows what those mean.
I do.
And you never brought up the time constraint as a measurement in one of them.
Yeah, and another thing that we do on this show is the Home Alone of it all. And I explain it every time, and I'm going to explain it right now. And it's as simple as this. When Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprints of his work on the table and rolls it out, you see all the traps, and then he builds the traps, and then the guys fall for the traps. That's the Home Alone of it. and we can pinpoint that element in other movies. In this one, it could be when they go onto the ship, the movie kind of starts. But I think once the doctor's face is ripped apart and it goes full horror, that's the Home Alone of it all, if that makes sense.
I would say that the Home Alone of it all is when Laurence Fishburne says, "We're leaving."
Yeah.
That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent of Kevin McAllister slapping down the blueprints of his house. Because that's kind of when people's hallucinations start killing them.
Yeah.
And it becomes the real horror.
To that note, though, the other doctor, the woman doctor, when she's in the med bay, she's the first
The
person.
woman doctor.
There's a man doctor and a woman doctor. I don't know how else to say it.
Is she a doctor? I thought she was like an engineer.
I wrote down her name, but it's not till way later in my notes. It's like Peterson or something. But anyway,
Peter.
The doctor. Oh, I see. Because if she's the only doctor and I say woman doctor, it sounds like okay. I see what happened there. So the woman doctor, she sees her son. That's coming up here in the plot, but that might be the first real hallucination, right?
There's a couple that are happening simultaneously, I think.
Well, I mean, at the very beginning of the movie, we have Sam Neill's character having a nightmare about this cut up guy floating.
True.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah.
It's like as they're getting closer to it, hell is
The ship's
like already
calling
starting.
to them.
Yeah, it's kind of pulling them in.
This might be like reading too much into it, but I would have loved, and like we'll never know for sure, but I would have loved it if that was the moment the ship returned, from wherever it was.
Right.
Ooh.
That's interesting, yeah. But wasn't it that it reappeared and then they got the team together to go look? I guess that's not really explained, so yeah.
Well, these guys, that's their job, right? Is they go to investigate distress calls and beacons and stuff. But they bring Sam Neill as like a late addition. That's why the Laurence Fishburne is kind of like, fuck this guy. And he doesn't need, like, he's just trying to say like, hey, I just want to say thanks for bringing me along. And Laurence Fishburne will not let him get it out. It's like, get in your tank, goddammit. Yeah.
And also, like, we find out that, like, Earth thinks that this ship just went on a deep space mission, but we find out that the Coast Guard guys are like, no, it was a government thing where they went to, like, test this gravity core. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff at play here. The civilians just think some ship went into space and got lost, and now these people are going to find it because it's reappeared.
I guarantee you, there's some conspiracy theory guys out there who are like, "No, it's a gravity core."
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's severely hinted at that the hellish dimension outside of our known universe has essentially given the event horizon itself like sentience to a degree. Like the ship has become alive.
Or is at least like super haunted.
Yeah.
Haunted. Yeah, I like that.
Just regular type ghosts.
Yeah. So anyway, the trip into hell causes Justin to go into a coma of sorts, and he starts to spew nonsense a couple times as well as foam from the mouth, which is always creepy in a movie. And then he attempts to kill himself by shooting himself out the airlock, which he does do. But it's weird because
this is probably the scariest part of the movie for me, actually, because he's
it's
possessed.
also gross.
Well, no, I mean, like, he's possessed going into the airlock, and he's talking like devil, like he's like, I'm the darkness, and the darkness in me, and blah blah blah, and then he snaps out of it, and then he's terrified. Like, where am I? Why am I in the airlock? And why is it about to open? That kind of shit. That's like psychological terror. That
can't he just turn it off from in there? Can't he just stop it, or can't
it seems like a pretty big design flaw.
Once you start it, it's opening 100% of the time.
Yeah, and there's a 30-second timer, so you get to stare at the clock while you're in there.
Yeah. It's definitely a huge plot device. I don't think they would ever build anything. That goes against so many OSHA.
You'd think that having a 30-second delay would be for you to cancel it if you need to,
just to really think about it.
Because it doesn't start opening till like 5 seconds are left.
It was also because it was airlock 13. That's why he got screwed.
It's a spooky one. It's the one that's spooky.
That was already haunted from the get-go. When they built it was haunted.
This weird
built out of haunted airlock parts.
Yeah, they did this weird in-camera effect, which still grosses me out to this day. But I remember when I was a kid, it made me want to vomit. But it's when all his veins become sort of the vascularity becomes extremely visual.
Yeah.
And the way they did that is they just had like air tubes underneath fake skin and just pumped them full of air, and they like popped out.
That's cool.
But that visual still grosses me out to this day. And one of the things I love about these types of movies, though, is watching their in-camera special effects. All right, Kalen, everybody has veins. Sit down.
He's trying to vascularize.
God damn it.
His eyes, he sits down, his eyes are gone.
Yeah. But I love when you get to watch them achieve gravity effects and interesting camera movement and try to figure out how they did it, because that it's not CGI. The CGI in this movie is very intrusive. Like it's very obvious every time they're using CGI.
I almost got a 720 version because the 720p versions of these 90s movies are always like it's a bit better, like they're meshed better. When you watch it in 1080p, which I watched it in 4K, I've said this before, it's almost, the CGI looks like a different layer than the rest of the movie. So not only is the CGI in the 90s like bad, but it like it like sticks out, like when you play an old PlayStation 1 game that's been remastered and the backgrounds are like paintings, and then the new sprites are like so obviously like standing on a painting, like that's kind of how it feels to me. I gotta mention video games because we are on Twitch. There's gonna be a little bit of that here and there.
We'll get shut down if you don't. But yeah, one of the nice things about watching like something like Aliens or this is trying to figure out how they achieve certain effects. I always think about the end scene in Alien when the alien is shot out of the airlock and then the engines are kind of like blasting towards the camera. And the way they achieved it is they just ran water through the light, so it looked like this engine was giving off exhaust, but they placed the camera in such a way that it looked interesting and cool. They did something similar in this where you could tell that they had Justin, sort of like on strings, and then they just kind of tilted the camera so it looked like he was upwards and all the blood is coming out of his mouth. and his nose and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I know how they achieved this, and I'm proud of myself.
I thought it was interesting when he was floating under the airlock that he was in the fetal position because he was like a kid character. I thought that was
he's the baby bear.
Yeah, I that whole sequence is the part of the movie that really sticks with me the most as far as like being scary, because like gore doesn't really get to me, especially these old movies. The psychological terror in any of the horror movies that we do is the stuff that gets to me the most, and it always probably will, because it's your imagination,
Yeah. Even after all this time, I realized that I'd thought that I knew, like, from science what to do if I ever found myself on the wrong side of an airlock. And I realized it was just from this movie. I just have, like, Laurence
Get all the air.
Fishburne's voice in my head being like, breathe out all your air and throw yourself up into a ball and you can survive.
That's funny. I don't know how accurate any of this is to real life, but
Oh, yeah,
that
I believed it for so long.
yeah. But I mean, we watched Sunshine last week, and there's a very similar sequence where a couple people have to go out into space, and one of them doesn't survive, and he immediately turns into ice. And I'm like, is this what would happen? I don't know. And then you see like Mission to Mars, and Tim Robbins takes his helmet off, and he crystallizes real quick. Yeah. I think it's like, it would be very painful, and you would probably not survive very long, but as long as Laurence Fishburne's there to help you.
There's also like the Total Recall Arnold thing where his face swells up.
Oh God, yeah,
the eyes are bulged out.
So the crew begin to have hallucinations that correspond to their fears and regrets and things that are haunting them, literally, emotionally.
Becomes kind of a Freddy Krueger situation.
Yeah, except there isn't like a burn man. Actually, there is a burn man. Never mind.
There's a literal.
It knows you personally. It's like, I know what's gonna mess you up.
Yeah,
Justin.
Freddy's coming for you in space.
In space.
What's gonna mess you guys up in space?
Oh man, like
drowning.
My pants being pulled down in front of an audience, and like everybody sees my penis.
In space,
in space, yeah. Space penis.
And it's not that I have a small penis or
it was cold.
Yeah.
Cold in space.
I was in the pool, the space pool.
I was in the airlock. I
think for me it would be like if you found out that like you weren't in space, you were in like, I don't know, like a fake space situation, like they faked the moon landing, like you're just in a giant studio in the desert.
Yeah, man, if they pulled a VR headset off me right now and revealed that all of this, like, how worse could it be, really? But like, that would suck if it was worse. If it was like a Ready Player One situation and they took the thing off and it was like, oh, you're in the same Earth, but it's way worse. It's like 10 years in the future, and the climate crisis it's a war now. It's a climate war. There's
We're all
climate
living
refugees.
in an endless
Nova Scotia is an island.
Yeah, Nova Scotia is underwater, probably, actually.
No, we still got the central part.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. My most reoccurring nightmare dream scenario is that I'm losing my mind and like I'm hallucinating, seeing things and hearing things. But runner-up is being in a very large body of water and not being able to swim to shore.
Thalassophobia, the fear of open water, is very real, and like megalophobia is another one where like being next to like a giant object, like
I have that as well.
We should do an episode on phobias.
I get really scared when I see a very, very large flag. I don't know why. I'm just like nervous.
Want to wear it as a cape?
Steve, I like that you're collecting these. You're like, how many phobias can I have?
I had a reoccurring nightmare growing up, and it still happens occasionally, but I think it was from having braces, and it feels like my teeth are like pushed in and shattering. It went away eventually, but that was pretty prevalent through my 20s.
I feel like they say something about teeth nightmares. Like I have teeth nightmares as well. Usually that my teeth have fall out of my head, and I'm like, I look in the mirror and I'm like,
oh my god,
it means
my teeth.
I have does mean something. That's what
it
they
means
say.
That you're gonna have luck and fortune. I think it means that you're.
I think that those are just stress dreams, are they not?
Yeah.
When your teeth are falling.
It means
out.
You're so good looking.
Yeah.
I have those too. My teeth falling out in dreams. I don't like that shit. Because I'm always 100% convinced in the dream that I'm not dreaming. I'm like, no, I dream about this all the time.
The one where I'm late for school that still happens occasionally is like, that one is in my hell dream. I would just be late for school,
with no pants on.
Like a guy's on
Your penis out?
fire,
Yeah.
and a guy's fucking got his face all cut up and his eyes missing, and I'm just late for school.
The ship's like, we've got him. We've got
Yeah.
him.
I'm just like, I've got no pants on at school.
Welcome to hell, bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's got their own brand of horror.
There's no cream or sugar for the coffee.
Oh no. The one that really I think stands out for me is the Peter's
I almost did a spit
luring
take,
her her son's nasty legs. This is another thing that I wanted to bring up, is that there was a director's cut of this movie that was deemed too gruesome, and it was too gross and unsettling. And it was never released, and the print of it was stored in a salt mine that got burned down.
Oh, that's a famous. That's like a famous thing, right? That salt mine that got burnt. Like a whole bunch of shit got lost.
Yeah.
Was there other movies in it?
Yeah.
It was in Transylvania, right? Like it was in like a.
Something. It was like a castle or some crazy shit with with a salt mine underneath it.
I think
salt burnt. I thought salt didn't burn.
No, salt preserves the tape.
The mine was made of wood, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It prevents like moisture from decaying the film and stuff like that. But
I saw in the director's cut that they actually they took this little boy and they actually put real maggots all over his legs.
Oh God.
For the film, and then it looked too gross, and people were like, "Ew, I don't want to look at it."
Yeah, need to.
There's just a 15-minute extended shot of the fucking blood orgy.
Oh, apparently, no. That's exactly it. The orgy was like double the length. You saw way
I want
more.
more orgy. I think this director's cut is the cut for me.
Because you're a sick pervert.
Apparently somebody like fainted or whatever in the test screening because it was too gross, or threw up or some shit. Yeah. I mean, the stuff you see is really gross, so I can't imagine what the stuff you don't see is.
It looks really good too because it's got that like red hue and like the lights are flashing and like.
I thought you were gonna say those red rocks. It's got
those red rocks and a fire geyser in the background and a big demon. And then little demons flying around the big demon.
We got Sam Neill starting to go crazy, and you get a little insight into his life. I think that out of everybody, the most insight you get is from Sam Neill. You get a little bit from Peters, and you get a little bit from Laurence Fishburne's character, but everybody else kind of like not so much. You don't get too much from them. In the movie's defense, there's a lot of characters, and you'd have to spend a lot of time with each of them in order to make all those things strong and believable. But I like to imagine that they're all having their own hell moments.
JD doesn't. He's a unique one because he doesn't really have a hell moment. He gets the movie The Thing rage thing.
Yeah, you want to hear my Jason's theory corner? He's a robot or whatever, a cyborg.
I don't think he is because he's losing his mind, but he's just losing it in a different way.
Loses
I think that
because when
his fear is probably that he enjoys cutting people open because he's like a surgeon or whatever, right? So he's probably scared that
to his neck.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, that was weird."
Jeez. Yeah. I don't know. So that's my theory was that his fear is that he enjoys what he does purely because he enjoys the bloodlust of it and not because he wants to help people. And so hell is slowly letting that kind of come in because he gets way too excited to kill Weir when Laurence Fishburne is like, take care of him, and he grabs 3 different items. He's like, which one of these would be best for killing this guy?
Of all the characters, I feel like he gets the least exploration into sort of who he is. Because even Smith, who's just he's the grumpy British guy who's I don't want to be here. Kind of makes sense to me. The Doctor's more of a mystery. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't really go on the ship that long. He experiences a literal gets blown up and experiences the last 5 seconds of him about to explode that. His is less metaphysical terror. It's literal terror that he experiences.
Yeah, and when he is on the event horizon, he has a mental breakdown, right? He wants to fight everybody,
right? And he's the one that that JD subdues with the scalpel, right?
Yes, yeah, because he's going crazy. So it is kind of prevalent to me that the ship, it has power outside of its hull, but when you're in there, it's 10 times more powerful.
I think the closer you get to the
the core.
The core thing, the worse it is.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about?
Another thing I wish they explored was like the bodies painted into the bulkhead and the bridge.
Yeah.
I love it. Like I love the set design in this whole movie. Like the set is gorgeous, especially for what they did. But like they walk into the bridge and there's like people's jawbones and like faces that are fused with the hull coating.
Yes.
And they gloss right over it. They're like,
Holy
that's
shit.
weird.
Yeah. Well, what I assumed is that is what would happen to you if you go into warp speed without being inside the tanks. Is that you would like fly into a wall and just like splatter like a like a bowl of bolognese.
That's why you need the couch.
Yeah, you got to chill on the couch or you're gonna end up like some spaghetti sauce on the wall.
Chill out, man.
Yeah, it was pretty gruesome to see the like I guess windowsills just like and they're in the background of so many shots. Or they're just the windowsills just coated with skulls and viscera.
And nobody's talking about
Nobody's talking about it. They're like
people are like, oh,
they don't even clean it up.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, just leave it. And then I'm also like, well, what about the other guy who's floating around? Was he in the couch and then activated
Maybe.
it, or like how come he didn't get turned into?
They didn't investigate
gelatin?
the couches on the Event Horizon, which I thought was strange. I feel like that was an oversight to see what's
Well,
there.
there's probably a lot of stuff they had to trim in this movie
Yeah.
that didn't really serve much to the plot, and it's also more frightening to see somebody liquefied on a bulkhead and not know why.
That's true, and
than
the
explain
body
it.
floating around does fall and like explode too, which was pretty good.
Fun fact about that body: the guy who made that body baked a Barbie doll into its chest, so when it smashes on the ground, there's a Barbie in there, but you can't really see it. It's a risky maneuver for a prop master, man. I don't know. You could like get in some serious shit if they're filming this body
like,
smash and a Barbie just falls out of it. You'd be in shit. Because he wanted to do it. He thought it'd be funny.
Oh, it was just an Easter egg just for him.
Well, I mean, they
like
found
the
it
Wilhelm
afterwards.
scream.
Yeah.
But how many years afterwards?
Yeah. But it's also like it's one of those things where if that thing's smashed and a Barbie just rolled center frame like right into the camera, like the shot's ruined. You got to make another one of these bodies to smash.
I'm sure they could fix that in post.
Have you seen the CGI in this movie? I don't know if they could.
There's just a CGI like ball suddenly for some reason that's clearly covering something up.
But I mean, at this point in the movie, people are dropping. Right, we've got Alfred Pennyworth gets blown up, which also sends Cooper off into space. The explosion, which is pretty funny when you think about it, like him just floating on a chunk of hull,
talking to himself.
Why does this shit always happen to me?
He also doesn't have fear. He's like, all right, Coop, how are we going to get ourselves out of this?
Yeah.
This is like a classic Cooper switch around.
The old switch
Classic.
around. The old Coop around.
But
I got to recuperate. Okay?
Yeah. Write that down.
There are a lot of moments in this movie that are borderline kind of funny when you like see it. If you were to watch it out of context, you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
The best line, hands down, is at the end where Cut-Face Weir has the gun, and he's like, Laurence Fishburne's like, you do realize that if you shoot that and miss me, you're gonna put a hole in the hull. And he's like, what, are you afraid I'll miss? Because his eyes are all fucked. I laughed out loud today at my desk at work, and everybody was like, the fuck? Because I watch a lot of movies on my lunch break.
I was gonna say, like, you're in the middle of like office hours and everyone's like, why is he watching this porn?
My screen is also like one of those like double monitors that's like curved, so everybody can see the whole shit. Every time boobs came on it, because there's a bunch of partial frontal nudity in this movie.
There is
just
a
like,
scene.
Just like scrubbing through. Well, there's the part where it shows her topless with no eyes, which is fucked. That's not safe for work.
No, yeah. There's also like a
The whole movie's not safe.
there's a shot of Sam Neill with his face against her belly, and there's just a breast,
just
like,
a
the whole
boob on his
screen is a
forehead.
breast.
Yeah.
Like there in his thinning hair. Yeah,
It's very cold.
The the Coop shot is pretty funny, just seeing him float on there. But like it does speak to like how good the models are, the miniatures are in this movie compared to the CGI, and how much production value miniatures in a space movie adds for me personally.
Yeah.
You can have as many CGI fighters blowing each other up on screen, and it doesn't take my breath away in the same way that like a miniature model moving slowly and boringly across the screen does. Like, I love this shit.
If you look at what was the movie with Sean Connery, Outland?
Right.
That has
had some sick
a lot of matte paintings with practical miniatures, and that movie was like fucking boring a lot of the time. But some of the special effects in that, similar vibe to this. Anytime that they were in the ship, it's like the Nebuchadnezzar inside, and also Sphere had this really good. Sunshine was kind of basic, except for like the like forest room was really cool, but the rest of the ship was kind of whatever. But Sphere and this both have that, like, you feel the close quarters, everything looks super detailed, and that's how Outland was as well.
Yeah,
it's
just the set design, and
I wanted to sleep through Outland because it's boring.
I still like it. It's the set design and the ship design and stuff is so interesting and cool. And it is worth to go through and listen to them talk about it when you're watching the movie if you ever feel so inclined. But my favorite part is when the young guy runs in and he says, Morpheus is fighting Neo, and then everyone runs out to him.
Okay. Jeez. They did that in there's like a show. Did you see that TikTok? I think on the new season of I Think You Should Leave, they do that bit or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. It's just funny because Laurence Fishburne is in it, and Neill sounds like Neo. Yeah. Morpheus is fighting Neill in the core room.
In the core room. Oh, yeah.
Sam Neill screaming is kind of funny when he sees his wife's CGI eye holes. He does that same scream in The Mouth of Madness, where he just kind of goes like completely, like he's like petrified, so he can't move, but he's just like, ah! He like an extendo scream, and it cuts off, which is, I don't know, it makes me laugh. Also, Laurence Fishburne's weird chair made me laugh too.
I loved his chair. I was hoping we would get to the chair, and like his chair, like I'm gonna do it right now. His chair never quite matches up. Like he's like, we better get, we better just fly over there.
Perfect. You hit that on the head so hard because it reminded me of like the bad guy in the original Dune a little bit before he floats up to the top, but just the way that the movement of it is so bizarre.
And the way he's revealed too, it's like he's backwards and it's like slowly coming towards the screen and then he just like, turns around. Yeah.
And I'm like, he's
constantly rocking.
Chair. Like, Everyone else is on like a regular office chair.
Why does he get this crazy thing?
Because it's the future.
Because he's the skipper.
I did like that. Like I always like in movies that depict the future, like any sci-fi, the things they get right and the things they don't. And like I love that everyone was like, "We gotta smoke in space our old cigarettes."
Yeah,
like it wouldn't be like an.
No one is going to be smoking in that era. Cigarettes will be gone, and CDs they're already gone. When's the last time you saw a compact disc?
They had magazines all over the ship as well, just like paper magazines.
Yeah.
Polaroids, yeah.
They did the similar thing to Alien, where they let them all customize their bunks, just to like get more in touch with their characters, which is a fun thing to do. But you only ever see one bunk, and you know exactly whose bunk it is. It's fucking because his name's on it, but none of the other ones have names on them. But it opens and it's just a bunch of naked ladies and football players, and I'm like, okay, all right, Cooper, calm down.
Of course,
we get it. You're a man.
Yeah.
They also do the around the table homage again.
Yeah.
That I always love when there's just like, I don't know, a bunch of space cereal but always hot black coffee. I love it.
Yeah. I think, Kaylin, you should be angrier about the fact that we get that in every movie, because that's much more prevalent in all three of these movies. Them sitting around talking about their gimmicks.
Yeah.
That happens in every fucking one of these kinds of movies. Every Alien movie has this scene.
I actually just watched Prometheus, which is like a much more modern film, and they do the exact same scene.
You have to, because you got it. That's how you get everybody's like thing that they are or what they do out of the way, real quick, real fast.
Well, I think also Ridley Scott has kind of stuck to his like adhesion in terms of like, this is what my vision of the future is like, and that's what I'm going to continue doing forever, and you can't tell me any differently. You've watched any commentary with Ridley Scott, and he's just like, I'm right, you're wrong. He says I'm Ridley Scott so many times. And he's always eating. He's always eating on his commentary tracks. He's like eating like a fistful of fucking walnuts or some shit. Every time.
Sounds like the kind of guy
I'm
that's
Ridley
always
Scott,
on
and these are
the-
my favorite nuts.
And you can tell he's drinking wine because by the end of the movie, he's always a little bit like.
Speaking
Yeah.
of.
Ticking clock is good. We like it. Yeah. So everyone starts dying. The Peters falls. Her ghost son lures her to her death. That was
When
another
you
thing
said
they had to
everybody
cut.
starts falling, I wanted to be like, and Peterson literally falls because she just
Yeah.
gets tricked into falling down. That scene
into a hole.
where they just dropped a body down a tube and it bounces off everything on the way down. Amazing.
There's so many things to hit. Yeah.
Amazing. But then when she hits the ground and the blood goes up, like because the blood has hit the coolant or the fuel or whatever, and it goes up. Awesome. But then you get the wide shot of her, the gore of her fucking legs all mangled.
Yeah.
Oh, just fucking
He
so
likes
good.
it.
I liked it on a second viewing, especially because that's the thing. I think horror movies, you get a lot, psychological horror, you get a lot more of seeing a second time because you know it's going to happen, but you get to see all the little things happen before they happen, like the teases. But when it comes to the actual gross out stuff, you can take you're not just like shocked by it for the first time. You can take a second to like take in the effects that they did. And those legs, like her legs were equally as disgusting as her like son's cancer legs.
Her son's legs. She was just like her little boy at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing that apparently was too gruesome the first time around, so they had to tone it down a little bit as well because it was just too much for
The body
audiences
bounces
to
off
handle.
more things and like limbs are flying off and blood spurting. Yeah.
Well, they wanted to have the bones like all coming out of the legs, and it's like
Nice.
Multiple compound fractures. Fuck me up with some multiple compound fractures.
Give
You
me
never
all
get
of that.
And then the doctor, he gets manhandled by Weir, which is this is when it becomes like ultra supernatural when Sam Neill has his moment where he talks to his wife in the dream and she for some reason tells him to rip his own eyes out, which I still don't know why he did that, but okay.
Then this like 105-pound bird bone weirdo just comes along and just manhandles everyone.
Yeah,
one
it's
hand
great.
choke slams a guy twice, 1.5 times his size, like
Yeah.
upwards into the bulkhead.
You see him with his shirt off too many times in this movie to make it so you're like, yeah, he's not that strong. He's like in his 50s. But yeah, he picks a guy up by his neck with one hand and throws him across the room into a pillar, and then vivisects him. Which
Oh man,
you also get a reveal on
And then
his
like
chest.
Hannibal Lecter like poses him.
yeah.
This is another thing that they had to tone down because it was too fucked up, which was he has this scar on his chest, which again kind of opens up our minds as the audience to like, okay, so maybe he had some sort of complicated surgery in the past, and that's why he's scared of this happening to him. He gets cut open, strung up like a Hannibal Lecter villain, and then all his guts are on the table in front of him. But what they wanted to do originally was have all the guts still attached to him, so they're pouring out of him, and then have him like be still alive.
It's kind of like a reverse. So you guys familiar with?
Remember The Cell?
Are you guys familiar with what a blood eagle is?
Oh yeah.
The Vikings
Is
thing.
it sexual?
Oh, it's
No,
when they like
they,
Super
like,
cut your
sexual.
back.
Yeah.
They
You have to
open
have
up your
sex with an
back
eagle.
and then break the bones and pull your lungs out while you're still alive.
To make them look like wings.
To make them look like wings. Yeah, you asked. They kind of got like a reverse blood.
Is this
eagle.
only in video games? Who does
No,
this?
it's in the show. The show
Vikings.
Vikings.
Scandinavians did it. Yeah, it was their
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah.
I think in Hannibal there was like a villain who was doing that to people as well, right? In the show. Anyway, gross. It's gross. And but we love it. And at this point now we're kind of close to the end, and it's when the ship blows up because of Weir blowing it up, and then he vivisects this guy, and then he sews his own eye holes shut, which I think
Again,
who knows why.
why? There's already
where
no
we're
eyeballs
going,
in
we
there.
don't need eyes.
Yeah, because he looks cooler with
His-
his eye holes sewn up.
His favorite movie apparently is Back to the Future because because of
Exactly.
that line.
We're
This has
going,
a-
we don't need eyes.
This has a couple of neat references like this, and then coming up soon after this is like a direct reference to The Shining, obviously with the fucking blood torrent.
Yeah. There's a lot of visual homages in this movie, but it's all to the benefit of the movie, I think.
Yeah. See,
Like I wouldn't
Notice
even call
Onions
it. Yeah,
uh,
you didn't say stole or ripped
stole
off.
or rip off, or these are clear homage because when you do it almost one to one like that, it's
Yeah,
filmmaking.
and W.S. Anderson, like he 100% during the commentary is like, oh yeah, I love all these movies and I watched them a million times while making this because I wanted to homage them properly and appropriately and have them have the same effect, if not a greater effect, on the audience. But
Well, we're
we
going.
get
We don't need eyes. It's so
yeah.
fucking. Sam Neill. I just watched all the Jurassic Park movies like last week, like the first three, and he's a little bit toned down in the first one, and that was the only Sam Neill movie I had seen until In the Mouth of Madness, and then this really, and it's funny because these are completely different performances. I always thought he was like this straight-laced guy who just did like serious roles, but then when you go back and watch Jurassic Park 3, his version of Dr. Grant in that is a little closer to like his John Carpenter or like this performance. He's a little bit more unhinged. He's a lot more like, the dinosaurs I saw were freaks in an amusement park, more so than him wanting to see the dinosaurs in the first. And this movie, you really get that like he could have played this very straight-laced, you know?
He's got to have fun.
But
He's got to have a little fun.
Even from the beginning, when he starts talking about the fucking core, that's why I was saying earlier, like the second time you watch this, you see the spark in his eye. You see that he's more of a mad scientist than like a guy who's just like kind of a victim of his own creation. He wants it to open up the gates to hell. He wants to push it and see what happens. He even says a couple times, like, the ship won't let me leave. Not that I want to leave, but the ship won't let me leave. And it's fucking just master acting, master horror acting.
And this is where we get the answer, which is that he wants to go to the other dimension. He wants to see what it's like there, and he basically already has pulled most of its features that I think we can all agree with to our dimension by murdering everybody on the ship and creating gross artwork out of their corpses. But then he has his nail gun moment. Cooper shows up again outside the window, and then he blows a hole in the window. And then we get a kind of a boring decompression scene, in my opinion. I don't know. The doctor gets sucked, he gets sucked out. Sam Neill gets sucked out into space, which I'm assuming he dies, right? Like he does come back, but he's got his eyes back and he's bald and naked and covered in slice wounds.
Yeah, the ship like reconstituted him or something. It was like, oh, don't worry, I won't let you leave. Yeah,
yeah, you have to stay forever.
That's a good point, actually. Like he. In my headcanon now is that the ship pulled his parts out of space and fused him back together, and that's why he's got all the little cuts all over his face.
Yeah,
and I assume the rest of his body, if I was to guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's you could literally say anything, and you'd have to be like, yeah, it could be, it could be that. I don't know. Maybe he's not him at all. Maybe he's some sort of approximation
of his imagination.
Yeah, maybe Laurence Fishburne summoned him here.
Speaking of Laurence Fishburne, like this whole time, everyone's losing their mind. Everyone's going crazy. Even Laurence Fishburne is hallucinating, but he's like beautifully lucid the entire time.
Yeah, he's the last person.
He's like, oh, I know what's haunting me. I've never told anyone. I know I'm gonna have a showdown here. Like he keeps his cool. Like I like this. This was him as like a proto Morpheus. Like he just was a badass. Yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is one of the greatest actors. A friend of mine worked on Hannibal, and it's a great factoid about him is that once he becomes your buddy, your pal, he asks you not to call him Lawrence, not to call him Mr. Fishburne, not to call him Laurence Fishburne, but to call him Fish. Just call me Fish.
Call me Fish.
That's perfectly on brand. I've told this story on the show before, but I worked at a Lavazza at the St. Clair, Forest Hill Loblaws, and I guess they... Oh, really? Okay. No, I'm pretty close. I'm just in the annex too. And he very much like came in a few times, and he'd have these like people would go up and be like, "Hello, Mr. Fishburne, how you doing?" But then there would just be like this like crowd of people standing kind of like semicircle around him, and the semicircle would just like follow him around the grocery store. It's so fucking weird when a celebrity is like in your midst. And he came over.
Buy an onion. Like,
he's not that kind of celebrity either. He's just a dude who's just a great actor. Like, you know. So yeah, he came over to the Lavazza, and I just treated him like a person. He didn't tell me to call him Fish, but like.
It was close though.
It was close.
Yeah. He said, "Call me Mr. Fish."
Yeah.
That's Mr. Fish to you. Yeah. So he does have that really good. It's not a monologue necessarily, but where he's describing fire in space in zero gravity and what it appears to look like, and he shares his story about leaving someone behind. But you know, that's his whole goal now, is that he's not going to leave anybody behind. And apparently they shot and completed a version of that scene where it's cutting to what he's describing, and because he killed the speech so beautifully, it wasn't necessary to have the visuals, because what it evoked in your mind was way more powerful just from his facial expressions and the way he delivered all of the dialogue.
Nice.
Which is a cool thing to know, that an actor has that ability. And you know, a lot of people are like, I could be an actor, and I'm like, I don't know if you could be an actor in the way that Laurence Fishburne is able to, unless you like dedicate it and craft it like the art form that it is, you know. Yeah, great performance by Laurence Fishburne.
But
Probably
yeah,
number one.
Just I do really like that the captain is so strong-minded and doesn't really have anything that he's afraid of, but he does have that one thing that eventually he's seeing all of his like crewmates like succumb to their dark, not fantasies, but their nightmares basically. And I think through watching that, that's how his mental block goes down enough for that to get in. And then he literally has like almost a fight with his friend who he accidentally let go and die. And then moments later, like has to fights the final boss version of Weir. It was very like, it's
Final
very
Weir.
Final Weir. It's very it felt very like these kinds of movies don't always have a main character, and it very much felt like he becomes the main character in that third act.
Yeah, I think that's one of the common themes this month has been ensemble casts where there's sort of like a hint at a main character, but everybody kind of plays an equal part. There's obviously some people that are more prevalent through the entire movie, especially with this and Sunshine. I think they tried to do that in Sphere. It didn't really work as well.
It was like obvious who the main characters were because fucking Dustin Hoffman's in it.
Yeah. And Queen Latifah gets like 4 lines before she's murdered by jellyfish. I think that these movies, though, it's kind of the opposite of a regular horror movie where it's like clearly Selma Blair is who's the person in Scream? Is it Selma Blair? No.
Neve Campbell.
Like Neve Campbell is obviously the main character, and she watches all of her friends fucking go down one by one. Where this, it's like Alien is kind of like this too, except for obviously Ripley. But like you're presented this like group of people, and somebody kind of just emerges as the main character towards the end to take down the bad guy or the monster or whatever. And regular horror doesn't really. It feels much more like it's more about the kills, and sci-fi psychological horrors always feel a lot more like there's more brutality, so you don't really have. It's like the kills aren't elaborate so much as they're necessary to figure out who the main character is going to end up as, I guess is my point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say there's quite a few elaborate kills in this movie, but I know what your point you're making.
This one, because this is just a well-made fucking movie, but the brutality of the kills are more, and it's a lot of off-camera stuff. The only kill we really see is her falling down that tube. You know, we see him cut into his chest, but only in like not the shadows, but like the assumed cut to the chest, and then he's splayed like later.
I again, I've said it a couple times throughout. there are some things that were way more gory and vile that they had to cut out because the movie was just like pushing to the point of being like rated X.
Yeah.
Unshowable to the public.
I want to see the Anderson cut.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was lost in Dracula's castle or whatever.
It was lost in Castlevania.
What if they reboot it?
They reboot it. They are rebooting it. There's an Event Horizon TV show coming up.
Yeah, I think there's a show. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I think this could work as a show. I think all of these movies could work as a show because there's what you can get across in 2 hours if you have 6-episode miniseries to do. It's like you could really take your time with each one of the characters and have the horror of it all.
I hope it's a miniseries actually. Now you say that because now I'm thinking of like the pilot is like probably going to be like them going to the ship. The second episode is them like just getting there, and then 2 or 3 episodes of the shit happening, and then an episode of them like leaving would be a good 6-episode arc. But that first episode has to like grip you, so it's going to have the elaborate, like they're all having dreams of nightmares kind of thing, or like hints at what's going to happen on the ship. I don't know what to expect. It could be completely different. It could have a whole different like vibe. Like it'd be a whole different story and just be called Event Horizon, and it's about space hell somehow.
Maybe
I'm
it's
gonna
about
watch
black
it.
holes.
Yeah, maybe it's like Contact where they just go next to a black hole.
I do think horror television is kind of tricky because a lot of horror relies on tension, and when you have it broken up with ends and beginnings of television shows, it can be detrimental.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there are no good horror TV shows. There's plenty of good ones, but I do find them to be a little bit more few and far between.
I hope they don't rely on like the formulaic, like they go clearly they're going to do a thing. I watched the episode of Mandalorian where they just go fight like a weird pterodactyl, and I knew what was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. I'm like, oh, this episode they're going to fight a pterodactyl. There's going to be a fucking cliffhanger, and then that's exactly what happened. And I just
feel it. I can feel it in the opening notes.
Yeah.
Pterodactyl fight.
There's going to be a big ass nest.
Exactly.
They're going to fight some babies.
They're going to fight the baby birds. I didn't see them bringing the baby birds back. That was fun. But anyway, that's not a space horror movie. But I'm worried that Event Horizon, if it becomes a longer series, it's just like, this week we're going to a different ship and there's going to be more space hell, and this time it's a cut up man.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be more of an overarching story than episodic. Yeah.
I do think that this movie's 90-minute runtime, it's like really short. I think it works a little bit against it. Like it would have been cool to like slow it down a little bit, see Weir's transformation a little bit slower. Like he goes from like pretty creepy mad scientist to naked cut up eyeless mad scientist like really fast,
like
so quickly. Yeah. It's and it's like it's like as soon as they're like we're leaving, he's like, or are we? And then he like disappears into a shadow. Like
I think that they honestly built that ship the way that they built it so they could have a 6-minute explosion sequence of the two halves of the ship blowing up. Like they were like, yeah, you can blow up the middle part of the ship so that the front end and the back end don't have to talk.
Yeah. And what is the point of that big long hallway? Looks cool, I guess.
It does look cool.
Because I feel like there's a lot of ways you could in a spaceship have a device that separates two pieces apart without giant explosions.
But then it wouldn't
the explosive charges are from one end to the other. They could have just made that hallway 10 times shorter and had one bomb.
One bomb, yeah.
But then it wouldn't look like a giant cross.
Yeah.
That's a good. I didn't even think of that till you guys mentioned it at the beginning.
The fun fact about that hallway is that it's built on a soundstage with a mirror at the end, so it looks a million times longer than it actually is. So anytime you see Laurence Fishburne running away from the camera, he's running towards a giant ass mirror, and they would just digitally remove him from the mirror. That's another thing about this movie. The cinematography is quite good, and Thomas Anderson, he's not necessarily known for having really good director photography, and just like a lot of his movies don't look like this. This is probably his most impressive movie in terms of principal photography and just cinematography in general. It just looks great. Like,
Was Resident
everything.
Evil 1 his next movie?
I think so. There might have been one other thing in between. I know that he did Mortal Kombat right before this, and
I have no idea.
He didn't do the second one though, right?
the second Mortal Kombat, I don't think so.
Mortal Kombat is
Good sucks.
so good. The first one, like, and not good, but like it holds up
It
in
was
like
good.
a cheesy like '90s action movie, like his take
Oh,
on
he
a
made-
kung fu movie with the characters from Mortal Kombat.
He directed 2 movies in between this and Resident Evil. He directed a movie called Soldier, which I've never seen, and a movie called The Sight, which is a TV movie, which I've also never seen.
Who's in Soldier? Is that like Jean-Claude Van Damme or like?
That
Anything
is
you prefer?
it's Kurt Russell.
Okay. Oh, he wrote the first AVP.
He directed the first AVP as well.
Yeah.
Pardon?
He directed the first Alien vs Predator movie.
Oh, Alien.
Alien.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any notes that we want to talk about for the rest of this movie?
Not really. You covered that so succinctly this time, but you're right. There's it had that John Carpenter kind of like you just say what happens in the movie, and that's pretty much what happens in the movie. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of like the theme or the themes and sort of just like how the movie makes you feel, because like we said at the beginning, it was pretty impactful to the point that I still think about a lot of scenes the first time I watched it. Seeing him covered in blood at the end, all the cuts, that's another image that stuck with me for years and years and years, to the point that it made me too frightened to watch the movie because I was so scared while watching it that I was like, that's the scariest movie ever fucking made.
also, side note, you said there were 12 Resident Evil movies.
Yeah.
There's 4.
What? There's only 4?
Oh.
There's
there's gotta
Resident
be more than
Evil,
4.
Afterlife, Retribution, and the final chapter.
Jeez, feels like there's way more than that.
I've only seen the
Yeah,
first
like
one.
in a bad way as well.
Yeah. What am I thinking of then? Maybe I'm just thinking of Fast and the Furious.
And I'm a
movies.
huge fan of the Resident Evil games, but the Resident Evil movies are not canon to anything. They're just
They're canon to themselves.
They're canon to themselves, but they just have like it's a different universe. Like they just have elements from the games a little bit. Like I think a Nemesis is in one of them, and the first one takes place in a mansion with like a lab underneath. You know?
Yeah, she's also like magic. She can like blow up satellites with her brain and stuff.
Also, like the whole planet gets blown up and destroyed, and then it gets destroyed even worse. And then everyone's like, gotta get the T virus to escape the T virus.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's all math.
But also the
It's all
games are
math.
fucking weird as well. So
The games are fucking weird in Japanese, though. They're super Japanese. That's the thing about they're like it's a regular action movie, but it had all these Japanese tropes, like RPG tropes, basically.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4, though, banger, just so good.
yeah,
playing
I
the
like
remake right
I
now,
like
and it's
4,
just-
5, and 6, and 7 is pretty good too. Actually, 6 is kind of shit. I didn't like 6.
The remakes of 2 and 3 are amazing.
They are amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, going through his resume here, or his filmography, it didn't get better after this.
No.
I
Like,
mean,
that's my question though. I was thinking about this today. I was like, did it not get better, or did he like? Because like the movies, I don't like, but is he like executing his vision? Is he like, hey, I'm a director and I'm getting paid to make these movies, and I'm making
He's-
2 a year.
He's kind of like if Michael Bay was Uwe Ball.
yeah, that's not a
You know,
bad
like he
description,
gets
right?
the budget and he writes a good video game movie, and then he gets the IP for Death Race. Pompeii, I remember being like, I didn't see it, but I remember doing okay. Like it's a goofy.
I
fucking-
saw Pompeii and I did not like it.
Yeah,
It's boring.
Okay.
And for a movie about a city that gets destroyed by a fucking volcanic eruption in like an ancient town, like
with like a pretty good.
How can you
cast.
make that boring?
Yeah.
It's about gladiators too. It's like gladiators who fight in the arena, or like having to fight soldiers while the entire mountain is exploding. I don't know. It's
Pre Lord of the Rings or pre Game of Thrones Kit Harington or early
No, it's after Game of
It's
Thrones
after?
started.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I watched it. I was like, oh, Jon Snow's in this. Yeah. Anyway, and then he made Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. He made a movie called, or a series called Origin, which I've never heard of. It's a space. It's a space. They're in space. Maybe I should check it out.
Does he have anything to do with the Event Horizon TV show? I don't see it.
I don't know, but I don't think he owns the rights to it because it's based on. I think it's based on loosely on a book, and then
okay.
the director, or sorry, the producer and writer, did the screenplay, and like apparently the writer was like, yeah, I've never seen, and he listed like every single space horror ever, and like they're like, you're lying. Like, you're just lying. You've definitely seen all of those movies and put all of those elements into Event Horizon. Yeah. No, I didn't.
No.
Nope.
All right,
It was a completely original idea.
But I like Alien versus Predator, the first one. It's kind of fun.
That is fun.
Yeah, I mean, like that was that's been hinted at for 20 years before that movie came out in comic book form and stuff, right? Like people wanted that. It's the same as Terminator versus RoboCop, which I'm surprised they've never made, which was a comic.
I feel like
book
that's a little bit
thing.
harder to pull off, but
Yeah.
Especially
the world
because they'd have to do a team up at the end.
Yeah, it's also like Ridley Scott since the beginning has hinted that Blade Runner and Alien take place in the same universe, like to the point that he even has the same company names and stuff. But I think Blade Runner is considered to be a little bit more highbrow than Predator and Alien.
And great if you want to take a nice nap. If you want to just
Though
take
Alien...
a nice nap next to a rainstorm with some neon light, that's Blade Runner.
No.
We all know you hate Blade Runner, Jason.
I don't hate Blade Runner. I just watched it when I was 37.
Well, you should have watched it when you were 17.
I should have watched it when I was 7.
I don't know if a 7-year-old can handle Blade Runner and not fall asleep.
I think I saw it when I was that young. There's this phenomenon my dad used to do when I was a kid. He'd put on like perceivably boring movies to make me fall asleep, and then he'd put on the hocky game, which I just put the hockey game on. That's gonna fucking make me zonk out anyway. But
He's like, it's the Jason phenomenon.
Yeah. You just watch old 80s movies when I was a kid and just like fall asleep and hope that I would, but I'd get up and I would kick him in the nuts.
All right. Well, the ship gets blown in half, and half of it goes to hell, and the other half floats away as a lifeboat, as they said earlier in the movie. And they get into their goo tubes, and eventually they're rescued. But then we get a little fake out. It's all a dream sequence where the character of what's her name? Fuck, I forgot.
I think it's called a smush couch.
Smush couch.
No, that's Smush Couch. That's from
Stark. Yeah.
That's from Jersey Shore.
Oh my god.
Is that where they do it?
Was that not a reference?
That's where they do it.
That's where
was
they
that
do
not a
it.
reference? Did you not do that on purpose, Scott? Because that's like there's a smush room in.
No, I didn't do it on purpose.
They had a spare room.
I've never had the privilege to go to a smush room.
They had a smush room because you don't bang in your own bed. You take the broad or the dude to the smush room.
Because you don't have to clean the room up.
No, you have to clean the bed in the smush room. Gross.
You just let that sit.
It's part of
It
it.
cleans itself.
It's part of it.
It's self-cleaning.
They think the producers are cleaning it every night, but they're not.
No, there's just used condoms everywhere.
Yeah.
So calling it back, if the ship gets blown in half and they're actually in the front half, I forgot. I thought for some reason they were in the other ship, but no, it gets destroyed. They absolutely brought hell back with them. I think that what's her face has a nightmare, and it's very similar to like Sam Weir or Sam Neill's nightmare. I still call him Sam Neir.
Sam Neir.
Sam Neill's nightmare in the beginning. I think she brings a little bit of darkness back with her. I think they find her out there.
What if the Event Horizon TV show is a continuation of the movie?
I think that'd be a smart move, right?
Yeah.
In my mind.
I'm down with that.
I just read a thing quickly that it said Laurence Fishburne open to coming back, so maybe we'll get the event kind of like The Last of Us.
But he died. It's going to be like Predators.
We get to see him with no eyes now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. He went into the fucking. He was in the back.
He went to hell.
The hell zone.
Yeah. Him and Ghost Sam Neill.
Well, maybe he escapes and he's the monster.
That would be
Season
cool.
15 of Event Horizon.
Yeah, we get a cool shot of him as like the sort of like the ambulance driver, I guess.
Speaking of,
yeah, yeah, that's the sound you hear in space when the space ambulance shows up. But it's just cool because they got these cool sort of, they almost look like firefighter spacesuits, and then when he takes the mask off, he's got all his gross cuts and everything, and basically just saying "Welcome to hell," and then she wakes up and she freaks out. And I'm pretty sure Cooper is just grabbing her breast, which was awkward.
Yeah, he's like, shh.
Yeah.
let it happen.
Yeah.
Get some
We're
hot
safe.
black coffee in
We're
you.
safe.
I'm a hero, pervert.
I'm a hero pervert.
And that's the end of the movie. We made it. We made it to the event horizon.
Do you see?
Everyone learned their lesson, and they stick to normal space travel after that.
I learned
Yeah.
something today. Maybe we shouldn't fly to an event horizon in a ship called the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Because
Stay away from Neptune. It's got a portal to hell on it.
and also lightning.
It's got lightning. That is also such a funny fact that they just wanted to have a lightning storm. So they're like, let's just make it happen somehow. Because it would be a little more boring. Because there's a lot of shots where they're just talking and you can see out the windows. Which, why the fuck you have windows in a spaceship anyway? Who knows?
Terrible
Yeah.
idea.
You can see.
But you don't need to. It's just a bunch of stars.
Windows that can be penetrated by like a pretty.
Yeah, they're like this thick.
easy-
They're so thin.
Yeah,
Um,
just like a kind
anyway,
of a
but-
pointy projectile weapon.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
can
on the bridge where everyone important doing all the important jobs is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But throughout the movie, you can see out the windows just like this blue lightning storm, like clouds blowing by the windows. It looks really cool. It's a smart choice visually, and it's interesting. But I think we're near the end, so I guess we can go on to what went well, or what worked. What is it called?
Yeah,
What
you
went
had it,
well,
you had
even
it.
better.
What
And
went well,
also
even
your
better.
final thoughts is sort of the last.
Yeah. So basically, Scott, you just say like what you liked and what you think could have been better, and then any final thoughts you have on the movie, and you can give it a rating of some kind if you like. I give it a nonsense rating. So
What went well and what
what you
could
would have
been
liked to have
better.
seen, yeah.
what went well was honestly it's a two-parter. It's the cast and the set. And like I don't know if these things kind of like jive off each other. They probably do. But the cast plays it really, really well. There are obviously some big performances here that absolutely crush it. They draw you in. And like you are dealing with some kind of hokey stuff, some kind of sillier stuff, and they really kind of like build the suspense. They bring you in. They make this space feel believable. They make it feel creepy. And the fact that these characters, like, they aren't stupid. They're like, this place is really fucked up. This place is really scary, and I don't want to be here anymore. Let's go. And then with plot, they're like, no, you can't go. And I like that a lot for a horror movie. What I would have liked to have seen is a little bit better pacing, a little bit better character development, and obviously things did get cut. But it did feel like, some people just went from 0 to 60 really, really fast. I remember thinking it had better pacing when I was a kid, probably because I was so freaked out. But yeah, I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, well, the shit hit the fan real quick. I would have loved to see it, but I love the fact that all the bad stuff, all the hell stuff, all the conceptual stuff that if you showed it would have taken it away, was all invincible. That was my favorite thing.
Cool.
Cool.
Do you have a rating of any kind you want to give it? Or?
I give it 2 empty eye sockets out of 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Kaylin, why don't you go?
2 out of 2 empty eye sockets. That's one of my favorite. That's one of the best.
It's a good
ones.
rating, yeah.
I'm going to preface with saying, and this has happened before, I enjoy you guys enjoying it and also having talked about it and whatnot.
It's rare that Kaylin doesn't like a movie. Also, like this is especially such a good one. I'm curious to see what you have to say here.
This movie's pretty divisive. I don't think a lot of people like this movie.
This is what I have to say about this week's movie, Event Horizon. This movie didn't do anything for me.
Oh shit!
Jeez,
And I'm not too sure I can say why. It's not that it's bad. It just isn't my cup of tea. For what went well, I really enjoyed that motherboard ventilation shaft mazy thing, whatever, with all the green and the circuit to just look cool or whatever. For my even better, so one thing I thought was, I don't think I was ready to see this at this time of year, and maybe watching it at a different time of year may have been better. Another thing I put for even better, though, was the orgy, the hell orgy. Give me more hell orgy. Give me more of that.
Pervert.
I said at the top of the show that I'm going to be the bad guy. And again, not that this movie is terrible or anything, but if you don't see this, you're not missing anything. I give it delirious sum.
Oh my God. This guy's speaking Latin over
Get
here.
out? Is that get out or get away or save us all?
Run it
or
through a
whatever?
filter.
Save
It's,
yourself.
Save
I'm
yourself.
crazy.
What did you
I'm
say?
crazy.
The thing that you wanted to say? You said that you had like a phrase or a tagline.
Oh yeah, it's Walmart brand John Carpenter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Also, MPAA 34953.
Okay. Yeah, I felt personally attacked by that.
Well, Jason, why don't you go next and tell us why you love it so much? Yeah.
Listen, when I was a child, when I couldn't handle gore in a movie, I did love Doom and Wolfenstein. Okay. And through my whole life, I've been able to handle gore in movies or in video games, but not movies up until. So basically, Scott, what had happened is the little show called The Walking Dead comes out, and I was so curious. It was so well written at the time, that it resonated with me, and it was one of the first like real prestige TV shows. Also, it was one of the first. It's when all the smaller networks started trying to emulate the HBO vibe. And through watching The Walking Dead, the first few seasons, it desensitized me in this very incremental way, where every episode had some fucking gross out, but it was just small enough that I didn't avert my eyes or like I didn't freak me out. Maybe it was kind of a coming of age thing, you know. I was in my like mid 20s, you know. Kind of an adult, sort of becoming who I am today.
Quarter life crisis.
And that sort of led to me being able to like pretty much handle anything. But before that, any video game gore shit was fine. But when I was a kid, going all the way back to the original Doom, I've loved space hell. When Doom 3 came out and we got a better graphics version of that, it blew my fucking mind. Blew my mind so hard that you're just on a spaceship and these guys messing around with like portals, accidentally open a portal to hell. That's, I think when I watched this for the first time last year, it reawakened that and made me realize that not only do I love the concept of like, oops, we opened up portal to hell in deep space, but it also makes me sort of realize that hell is just a word, and they say that in the movie. It's more the chaotic other place. As a non-religious person, hell is like more exciting to me than heaven could ever be, because hell is either going to be like you're tortured and murdered over and over, or it's going to be like Little Nicky hell, and you go down there and you fucking play a shredding guitar solo.
Those are the two
I
options.
like that. I like that your hell is just those two things. It's like,
but you go to like the bad hell or the cool hell. Going to heaven seems like it would suck. Get to see all your racist ancestors.
I don't know. I think they'd probably be in hell. They're racist.
I don't know. Have you seen Christianity? Anyway, sorry, not to get on my. Yeah.
I have firsthand.
Not to get on that
look.
notion, but that's sort of what really resonates with me in this movie, and why I just clung to it immediately. And we were coming off watching all those John Carpenters, and it really feels like a John Carpenter, and I watched the first Hellraiser around the same time as I watched this for the first time, and it just sort of all melds together, because Hellraiser, they're like aliens in that too, right? Like they're kind of perceived as that sort of space hell kind of a thing, and I love it. It's just so cool to me. And then this, on top of all that, this movie feels like a really high budget John Carpenter movie, which isn't saying much because John Carpenter movies are typically pretty low budget, middle of the road, especially the older ones, the non-escape movies. And the cast is a great cast. I think that this is a movie I'm going to go back and watch all the time, like for real. What went well? All of it. Space hell. The cast. The crew. Space Alfred Pennyworth. Even better, I'm with Kaylin, man. I want to see the Anderson cut. I want to see a 15-minute uninterrupted shot of the blood orgy. And when that dude vomits all that like viscera,
it's his guts getting ripped out.
It looks so real. Like
let's just call back when you're like they're eating each other feet first.
I thought he had his foot in his mouth. Okay, that's how fucking weird it is. Like I kind of want to go
because it's not a real head. It's just a dummy head that they just shoved the hand and they pulled actual stuff. That's why it looks real, because it's a real nastiness coming out. Feet first.
Yeah, I thought it was he was eating a man foot first. I give this movie like a 4 out of 5, I'd say, and then on top of that, I give this movie you rip out your own eyes so you can see the truth.
All the red rocks. There you go.
All the red rocks in hell. I give it all.
I give it a fire gusher and a giant demon.
A fire gusher.
Red rocks.
We got a fire.
Can we get sponsored by Gushers and get some Gusher snacks?
Yeah, I'll call up John Gushers and get us that fucking Gushers money.
Johnny boy.
Give me that Gushers.
Johnny boy. Okay, well, I guess it's my turn.
Space hell.
My what went well was similar to Jason and Scott, which was I pretty much like everything about this movie. The music, I don't think we talked about that enough. It's really great. It's one of those scores that I could see myself looking up to just listen to and potentially use in like a tabletop adventure of some sort. But the sets are easily my favorite part of the entire movie. I love the idea that they took actual Gothic buildings in real life, scanned them digitally, and then broke them apart and basically used them like Lego to build interesting sets and models. I love that the entire ship feels like a medieval torture chamber, especially the the medical bay, which just got these like super Gothic pillars and spikes everywhere, and then they even have like a table full of shiny
why did
instruments.
They have the things that allowed them to splay a man like that? Like, why? I see what you're saying.
Just in case you needed it.
Just in case you need it. Also, like it does, like their ship, the Lewis and Clark doesn't look like that. And
No, not at all.
Ship, and no one talks about the decor. They're just like, oh yeah.
So for me,
Lois and Clark,
what I would have liked, what I think. Heard. Speaking of the set design. This would be unbelievably expensive, and I know why they couldn't do it, but it'd be cool if when they first arrive at the event horizon, if the ship did not look as Gothic as it did, and it slowly became more Gothic throughout the movie, and everything became a little bit more violent looking and dark. I think it just would have been a really good visual representation of the ship slowly becoming the hell that it's been spawned from. That, or if they saw on those recordings of the previous crew that the ship didn't look like that before it went in the portal, and when it came back it was like a creepier version. That might be a little too on the nose, and it could be considered silly, but I think it would be really cool. And then my rating, I give this one of the most seamless reverse shots I've ever seen in a movie, and I had to look it up to be sure that I was correct. So in movies, a lot of the time, they'll reverse a shot because it's either too dangerous or too difficult to achieve. A lot of it involves something landing on a precision mark, usually not a person, at the end of a shot. So
sword to the face and hook.
Yeah.
True,
so,
yeah.
There was a TikTok that went around recently where somebody showed how they shot the shot of Rufio hitting Robin Williams on the nose with the sword, and the entire thing was reversed.
Like,
and
he said his line in reverse.
In reverse, yeah. So he had to learn how to say his line backwards so they could dub it after. And there's a similar, it's not similar, but there's a shot that was reversed in this, where I'm like, they must have reversed this, but I couldn't tell if they did or not, so I looked it up. And it's when all the rings on the sphere stop perfectly, and the guy's walking up to it, and he walked backwards and like stood there, and that's how they achieved it. Nice. So yeah, that's my rating. A perfectly executed reverse shot. Love it. Love to see it in a movie. And that's the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Event Horizon, one of my like guilty pleasures that I know a lot of people don't like, but I fucking love it, and I will watch it once a year until I die. How do we end this again?
Oh my god.
You
do it
say
every
on
week.
behalf of this
So-
person, and this person.
For Kaylin and Jason and Scott. Actually, Scott, thanks again for coming. It's really great
Yeah.
having you here. You're
Scott-
a wonderful guest.
Oh, it was great. It was a great
I
show.
always forget to do this, but I was thinking about this today. People don't typically have things to plug, but do you have any, like, do you do things?
I don't do things because I recently got my Steam Deck.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
The Steam Deck. It doesn't just play games.
Stop plugging the Steam Deck.
Maybe it'll bring a sponsor in, man. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for coming. You're welcome back anytime. There's endless
Absolutely.
movies to talk about. And I'm sure that you and I can find another handful of flicks that we can talk about forever.
And for
So-
Steven and for Kaylin and for Scott, I'm Jason.
And for Kaylin and Jason and Scott, I'm Steven.
And for Steven and Scott and Jason, I'm Kellen.
And I
for
just got one.
Caleb and
Oh.
Steven and Jason Scott.
Whoa, he did it. Those
Ah.
people don't do it.
You're like, nah.
And I don't blame
I
them.
barely know your names.
But it's time for me to ask the question that we all have on our mind, and it is, hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, can you see it?
Can you see this one, please? Still hear us. In the outro.
I'm really glad earlier because like everyone was really quiet and I was like, I wanted to ask so bad, like, do we talk now?
Don't talk during the intro, but during the outro.
No.
Now we have the thing where it's like, thanks for watching, and now somebody needs to say the world's funniest thing for me to end on. So
Do it,
All right.
Scott.
The world's funniest thing.
yeah, just gotta say the
The
funniest.
pressure.
What's your last name, Scott?
No, I don't want to say it.
Say it.
It's too fun.
Say it.
My last name, it's a normal last name. But my last name it's Dickie.